microphone. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Literally outside. That Phoenix challenge right now is to dress appropriately in the early morning and then be able to adjust throughout the day, right? So we're all trying to pull that off. We thought we'd make that an extra challenge today. But appreciate you coming out. Dawn Grove is the first guest that we've had in the Phoenix Forum that for whom I have been swarmed after the forum, a previous forum, in order to get her on. So we literally had people at previous forums come up in a swarm and say, you have got to have Dawn as one of your guests. And we're thrilled that she was able to come today. If you don't know much about Dawn, let me give you a little bit of background. She is a Phoenix native. She is from, as David mentioned, a member of the family that started Ping Golf, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ping. Hopefully they've helped you with your putting. I see Mark Buckley back there. I've played golf with him. He needs a little help with his putting. An attorney. Dawn is also an attorney. She has experience in manufacturing. She has 3 children, been married for 28 years, running for Attorney General. And we're going to be talking about her candidacy for Attorney General. We'll get into that a little bit later in the interview today. But we have a lot to cover with Dawn. I'm excited to sit down and chat with her. Enjoy your food throughout. Like I said, Dawn, we want to know you. We want to talk about Phoenix, and we want to talk about your candidacy for Attorney General. But let's start with this. Do you actually like golf?
Thank you,
Or is
Presley.
it just too much?
No, I do like golf very much. And let me just say first, I'm really, really pleased to be with you all. I see so many friends here, people I've known for a long time, and I'm really thrilled with what Living Streams is doing. And glad to see this Phoenix Business Forum growing and continuing. So yes, some of my cousins had to hit 100 balls before school every day. My parents did not subscribe to that philosophy, so I was a lousy golfer, and it took me a long time to get over the fact that I was a lousy golfer, and I didn't want to bring dishonor to the clubs. But I got over myself, and I got out there, and I learned to golf, and I love it now.
Okay, fantastic. Are you going to the Open? No
I
time.
am, yes.
You
No,
are
I
going
will
out.
be there on Friday.
Anybody else going out to the Open? Okay, got a few people. Great. And then, of course, we have another big event this weekend, Super Bowl. You got a team you're cheering for?
Probably the Bengals.
Going for the Bengals. Bengal fans out there? Rams fans? We don't like the Bengals. Okay, well, my son, I wore socks he gave me for Christmas today. If you want to check him out, it has his face on them. He's 14. He's a huge Rams fan. He's here. So if you want to heckle him, you're more than welcome to do that. He's cheering for the Rams this weekend. All right, Dawn, so let's talk first about your background in manufacturing. And we're going to do manufacturing, then we're going to talk about law and business, then we're going to talk about Attorney General. I'm just fascinated by this idea that your family has been in manufacturing all these years. I've grown up in a time where manufacturing seems to have been kind of pushed to the side. Service sectors have become kind of the thing that we've thought about or focused on. Oh, manufacturing is done overseas. So I'm interested in hearing whether you think, with all of the history that your family has, is manufacturing still possible here in Arizona? And what is the future of it going forward?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that question because manufacturing is alive and well in a big way in Arizona. Literally 68% of the jobs coming into Arizona are manufacturing jobs. This is a big deal. Arizona's become the semiconductor hub of North America. We now have a thriving electric vehicle manufacturing business here. We learned some tough lessons during COVID, didn't we? That if you don't have personal protective equipment or if you're not making ventilators, some other country can hoard those things and shut them down for your people. You've got to be able to make things locally. You've got to be able to grow food locally. You've got to be able to have it here so that no other country can take that away from you. That's part of our national security and our independence. And I really feel like it's the lifeblood of Arizona, and it's what's making us grow like crazy when other states aren't. The fact that we're free, that we've had less regulation than other states, that we have lower taxes. It encourages businesses to want to locate here, and we are seeing them flee from California right now with all of the overregulation and just lording it over the people there. It's been very challenging for them, and so many of those businesses are coming to Arizona and finding a home. So I think manufacturing is more than alive and well. It is the key to the growth of Arizona.
And so what are some of the stories from your family when it comes to the changes in manufacturing over the years, you know, and how you had to adapt? I think your grandfather started making the clubs out of his garage, but then I believe your father got into maybe software so that you could transition the company, make it more technologically competitive. Is that the journey? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So my grandfather was an immigrant and came over here with next to nothing. His mom died very shortly after he was born, or after he was here, right when his little brother was born. And my grandfather got transferred to different families, a German-speaking family, a Swedish-speaking family, and he nearly stopped speaking altogether because none of his words worked in the new households that he went to. But he would watch how things were made, and he became this brilliant problem solver. And he led the team that developed the tricycle landing gear so that it could land the Navy's first jet on an aircraft carrier during World War II. And then he helped develop the adjustable rabbit ear antennas on TVs. Do you remember those? You could get a clear signal on your television. And he just thought, well, the next thing I invent, I want to patent and make myself. And that just happened to be someone taking him out golfing, and it bothered him to no end that he could not get that white ball to go where he wanted it to go. And he finally realized it was the club, and he just needed to redesign it. So that's why he started making the clubs, and he did it in his garage, and my grandmother worked beside him, and my uncles as well. And my dad was the one who went off and wanted to study computers. And so he went to New York and worked for IBM. My mom calls it I've been moved. So I did live out of Arizona for a time, and we moved all around, but I always knew Arizona was home. All my aunts and uncles and cousins and everyone were here. And so he brought that computerization knowledge back to Ping so that we could customize all these hundreds of different custom fit orders. Instead of doing the mass marketing where there's, the cheapest golf club possible for the most people possible, my grandfather wanted to make it individual for every person so they could play the best that they could ever possibly play for a super reasonable price. And so just made everything customizable for, the individual sizes of your hands, or like I have a 6'2" son. And you'd think that he's so tall he would need a really tall golf club, but it's the opposite. His arms are so long that he needs a short one, So you have to look at each individual swing and how they do it to make those golf clubs the most fitting for each person.
Yeah.
And it's become a top global brand.
Sure, no, Ping is very well known. And along the way, the challenges, I'm sure, are legion. But over the past few years, you mentioned COVID being a big challenge for manufacturing for all kinds of businesses. What are some of the challenges that stand out to you as your family has stayed in manufacturing, particularly over the last decade?
There have been a number of them. It's amazing what all businesses and manufacturers go through to just be able to continue a business, to deal with all the federal, state, and local red tape, to deal with continuing to have your customers, continuing to have your employees want to stay there. We've faced a number of challenges over the years. I think of a time when Disney began trademarking Ping throughout the world and got our attention because that's our trade name, that's everything, for us. And for a while they were like, oh, just stay in your little corner with golf and we'll do the rest of it. And so that would not work. And I really can't say, what the terms of all of that was, but you'll notice that in the Mulan movie there were no Ping tchotchkes being made, and in the second Mulan movie she didn't even turn into the character Ping. So you'll see some of the things that we can often find some creative solution to things. It doesn't always have to be some big litigation. And when COVID hit, it was a scary time, because all of our Ping products are custom made, and all the retailers were shut down. No one was doing any custom fittings. So suddenly our orders went from Mount Everest to Death Valley, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. So we did shut down for a few weeks. We spaced out all the stations to be as safe as possible for people, and we prayed. And eventually the orders really came back in Japan and in Korea, and so we brought people back to begin filling those orders, and eventually the orders opened up here as well, and people began to discover golf for the first time, because it's this safe thing to play even in a pandemic. You can be outside, you only touch your own golf equipment, and they changed the rules so that you don't even have to touch the flag stick. So it really became this new awareness of golf. And now, I mean, last year we sold probably more than we've done before. And
Oh, is that right?
literally,
You have really seen some success and
Oh,
growth.
yes.
And
And-
people are new golfers are picking up the
True.
game.
and most of us, even our president and CEO, attorneys, accountants, everybody, we all worked in the factory on Saturdays because the demand was so high. We needed every hand possible to make as many clubs as possible to meet our consumers' demand.
I did not know that. That's great. You mentioned litigation a couple times, so we'll move a little bit into your story around being an attorney. So how did that come about in your family? You were with, I've Been Moved.
Yes.
And your dad was into that, the computers, and you decided, I want to get into law.
I really did know from the time I was 16 that
Really?
I was called to go to law school. Like
Had you
I
seen
really knew.
lawyers, or
know-
not something that people?
I
thing.
knew
I'm 16.
that I was really good at helping people solve problems, and I could find creative ways that they hadn't thought of. So my friends at school, if they were dealing with something, I'd be like, oh, well, have you try talking to the school board about that? And maybe we could set up this person, and let them hear what your concerns are. And so
advocacy, you wanted to
I
be a
knew
part
I
of
was an
that.
advocate,
Okay.
absolutely. And just like my grandfather was an engineering problem solver, I was more of a legal problem solver. And so I told my parents and my grandparents that I was going to law school, and they said, oh, that's too bad, we don't need a lawyer. And my dad actually told me I was on my own if I was going to law school. So I knew I would have to do really well in school, and I prayed, and the Lord gave me a full ride to Pepperdine all 3 years, all my books, and my family came around to being like, oh, well, I guess that's okay.
Really? So they were actually opposed to law school a little bit. Not to dive too deep, I'm not Dr. Phil, but I mean, it's interesting because they didn't think they needed a lawyer for the business, and they wanted you to come and work in the business, or can you tell us?
So it was a little bit of that, and then a little bit of, they knew that I was motivated to save unborn children and to make sure that our laws were doing justice. And so someone in my family told me, well, Jesus didn't try to change the laws and you shouldn't either. But I think it's different. In a country where we, the people, are the government, we do make the laws. It's not like the Israelites under the Roman rule or in China where the people don't have the say in that. We do have the say in that. And I believe that is what we're meant to do. And so when I went to law school, I was able to study constitutional law under Justice Scalia. So he was my con law professor, and he was magnificent. He would spend time talking with us after class and taking walks. And he really predicted this mess that we'd be in with the agencies, the CDC and OSHA taking too much control and dictating Americans' lives, writing the rules and enforcing the rules in their favor and adjudicating them. It's not how it was meant to be. And he said that the citizens would need to rise up and stop that.
Well, fascinating. And Pepperdine, the family dinner table sounds like it was a pretty interesting place when you were 16. That sounds like some challenging conversations. But you were an advocate. You wanted to fight. Did you get into law and ever think maybe I was wrong, or was it always the path?
First job was working for the National Right to Life Committee in Washington, D.C. And I loved that, and it was great. I was really hoping for the overturning of Roe v. Wade then, and it didn't happen with the Webster case. And I realized it was going to be a long slog to do that. But during law school, I just found that I had an interest in so many broader things than that. Like, I really love this idea of making things in the U.S., of having utilities, power and water that are clean and reliable, of making sure that corporations are doing good for the people, and that governments are serving them well. I just really found an interest in all of that and brought that to the Lord, and he made my path very clear.
Last question about being an attorney. I mean, I asked this question of Sheriff Paul Penzone when he was on, because law enforcement just seems so, well, I mean, obviously it is so conflict oriented, right? You just constantly, you're dealing with difficult scenarios, you're dealing with conflict with either your colleagues, it seems like, or out in the community, and that's what you're doing in politics a lot too. But as an attorney, certainly you're always fighting. I mean, you don't seem like that much of a fighter, but it's in
Well,
there.
I do
huh?
a black
mean,
belt in Taekwondo, but you
Okay.
pull out thank you. You pull out the fight when you have a true battle, and you don't fight your friends along the way. So I'm not someone who needs to tear down my competitors in this race. I'm someone who wants to bring people along, and then when we have a battle over whether we have free speech on the internet or something that's a true battle, that's when the fight comes.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess we had your kids here. We talk about family fights. Is that do you as an attorney, do you use your legal expertise in raising the kids? I'm sorry, my kids are in my view, and so I'm like, how can I draw on this?
I love it. My youngest was just saying the other day, what it's like to be the son of two attorneys. It's like, okay,
Your husband's
is
an
this your
attorney, too.
toothbrush? And did you brush your teeth? Yes, I did. Why is your toothbrush dry? Because I brushed them yesterday. Okay, well, we need to resolve that. So yeah, no, there's definitely
Here's a
something
contract.
where they've
Do you ever
Yeah.
give your kids a contract?
I can't say that I have, but
No?
but my youngest is rocking it in mock trial right now, so I think he had some good training around the dinner table nonetheless.
Okay, very good. All right, well, let's talk about Attorney General. What is the Attorney General? For those folks out there that may not be politically inclined or have heard of that title, what is the Attorney General responsible for?
Attorney General is probably the most impactful position you never hear of. It is so important. It can be the difference between tyranny and liberty, the difference between a thriving community and a dying community. I've seen a bad Attorney General take down an economy. I've seen a good Attorney General do their constitutionally mandated job to protect the rights and liberties of the people. That's what they're meant to do. So our Arizona Constitution, well, our rights are given to us by God. And they're written down in the U.S. Constitution and the Arizona Constitution. And the Arizona Constitution says the purpose of government is to maintain individual rights and liberties. So the Attorney General is tasked with that first and foremost, and there's several ways that they do it. They do it by pushing back on federal overreach into your family's faith, freedom, free enterprise, and making sure that your U.S. and Arizona constitutional rights are protected. They defend the laws of Arizona, and they make sure that anyone who is being harmed, whether it's by crimes and violence or by fraud or other unscrupulous businesses doing wrong things, they make sure that victims are protected, that they can bring justice to whoever needs it, and bring wholeness. If somebody's been defrauded, they can get that recovery for them so that if there's some fraudster out there harming a bunch of people at once, they don't all have to get their own attorney. They can go to the Attorney General of Arizona who can do that for them, get the recovery for them. And then finally, the Attorney General advises all the elected officials and the 220 boards and commissions and make sure that they are actually serving the people and obeying their laws and doing the things that are good for the people of Arizona, not just telling them what to do.
It might be helpful to compare it to your role as general counsel for Ping. I mean, you were the attorney general for the company. Is that a fair way to look at it? You were there to defend the rights of the business and the employees, and is that what the general counsel for a business is doing?
It's giving legal advice to the business to make sure that they're complying with all the different federal, state, and local laws. It's making sure that our employees are treated well, that their environmental health and safety is taken care of, that our patents are being protected, our trademarks, that our distribution in nearly 100 countries of the world is done rightly according to their laws. There's a whole lot involved in that. And really, giving legal advice is the best background for an attorney general. Some people think, it's better to have a prosecutor or something like that, but that's about 10% of the work of the attorney general. You got a whole 90% to learn then. Being an in-house counsel for a company, you learn that 90% of what are the issues that are facing all of these different businesses and are facing the state. And you've been giving legal advice, as I have for 30 years. It gives you a good look into what that is. And the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, came out in support of me. And he was a general counsel for JCPenney beforehand. And the former Florida Attorney General, who's also a prosecutor, came out in support of me, as has the Nebraska Attorney General and lots of other people. So it's been very encouraging to watch.
So what's the journey from, seems like you have had a great career. You mentioned all your kids are doing really well. You're got a secure position as general counsel there, and you're on the manufacturers council, you're doing all this stuff, and then you decide, I really want to jump into politics. I think I'm just going to do that. I'm going to campaign. I'm going to go for attorney general. Who tricked you?
That's a good question and fair, and I will tell you that many people asked me to run for office over many years, and I told them unequivocally I had zero interest. And finally, some of them cornered me and said, are you saying you will never run for office? And I said, you know what? I have learned not to tell God what I will never do, but God would have to completely change my heart because I have zero interest. And I was driving to California by myself one day, so the 6-hour drive, and about 3 hours in, when I was just praying and singing along the way, I suddenly wanted to serve my state and country, and I'm like, oh, selfish ambition, vain conceit, get that thought out of your mind, you know? And it just kept coming, and then the Lord confirmed it in so many different ways, so remarkably. You know, someone would be walking through the company saying, where does Dawn Grove sit? I want to give her flowers and tell her to run for office. And my husband, who works in a different building, was there, and he's like, I know where she sits, you know? I mean, just wild things like that. Somebody standing up at a public meeting. I was chairing the Arizona, the workforce development efforts for the state of Arizona for the last 6 years. We did things like put training centers in prisons and different things like that to make sure that the people are able to get skilled workers. And somebody stood up at a public meeting, you know, my public comment is, when were you going to run for office? I mean, all these crazy things happened all week. And by the end of the week, I'm like, okay, God, I got the message. But it's really become a desire that I never, ever had before. And my husband and I have counted the cost on this. We know that our reputations will be dragged through the mud and our security and privacy will be compromised. And we really feel like our country is worth it. Arizona is worth it. Our people are worth it. You are worth it. There's just a need to have normal people from normal jobs get out there and say our rights and liberties are worth protecting. I'm going to stand up and do it. And I should clarify that my husband and I work together, so technically he is the general counsel and I am one of the attorneys, so we brought him there first. My grandparents did initially ask me to be the general counsel, but when we looked at what would be the best way to bring all the family around to bringing in new things, we chose my husband.
Wow. Yeah, family business. I mean, we could probably talk about that for a long time.
You
the
know what?
dynamics of how do you navigate
I am
those
so
decisions.
proud of my family. Can
Yeah.
I just say,
Yeah, I think
we
you
have
should be.
transitioned from my grandparents to my uncle, and from my uncle to my cousin, who's now the president of Ping, unanimously. And our family works together and still loves each other. And I feel like that's a testament to the Lord.
Yeah, that deserves a round of applause, I think. Reminder, you're going to have a chance to ask some questions here at the end. I'm going to make sure we leave some time for that. Do we have, I don't have a clock outside. How? Do good? Okay. So you can text questions in and then they're going to be texted to me. Okay, so let's talk more about Attorney General, Dawn. You want to change things? You want to keep things the same? My wife and I, we like to do this little exercise called Stop, Start, Continue. And we should do it more often, shouldn't we, sweetheart? But when we remember to do it, it's really helpful because we look at all the things we're doing and we decide, all right, what do we want to stop doing? What do we want to start doing? And what are we doing that we want to continue? And so I guess that would be my question. What are the changes you would want to make as an Attorney General?
Yeah, fair. And I will say that my husband and I do the same thing. We'll take a weekend once a year and kind of write out what are our goals for our kids? What do we want them to know? We want them to grow closer to the Lord. We want them to maybe learn another language. We want them to learn a sport. We would plan it out each year, and it was a beautiful thing to be able to do together. But in the Attorney General's office, there are a lot of good things going on and some that I would do differently. So definitely some things to build on there. I think our Attorney General did a good job of bringing things to the U.S. Supreme Court. We've had 4 cases in the U.S. Supreme Court from Arizona in the last 2 years and won them. They have an amazing Solicitor General there who does a fantastic job and is humble and hardworking. And one of those cases was the ballot harvesting case, saying that you couldn't just grab ballots from who knows where and bring them in and drop them off kind of anonymously. You had to have some showing of it coming from this voter. And I appreciated the fact that General Brnovich intervened when there were these Americans with Disabilities Act cases where people were suing businesses saying, your parking handicap sign is an inch too high, or your toilet paper roll is an inch too low, pay us $10,000. And so he intervened and said, wait a second, let's at least give these businesses some time to comply if it is wrong. And part of it was there was an ambiguity in the law. Do you measure it from the curb or do you measure it from the street? And so either way, they had you. And I appreciated they intervened in that, gave businesses time to comply, helped them know how to comply so that they could do it. Whereas
I like that one. I'm going to jump in on that one. You can think of your other ones. I hope I don't take it away from you. But as a business owner myself, you live under this threat of litigation. It feels like that. Even if the marketing is going well and your business is growing and you're treating your employees as well as you can figure out how to treat them, if somebody asks you, well, what's a major risk to your business? Like, well, I might get sued any day for something that I either didn't know about or is, an inch off, or there's, it seems like, and it's funny to say it this way, but I'm reminded of another story. A few years ago, my kids went through this phase where they would say, well, we should sue them. It was like everything. We would go through the drive-through and one of them would get the wrong drink. And they'd be like, well, we should sue them. I was like, I want you to understand how the legal system works, but I don't think we need to sue everybody all the time. I think they're over that, although they just recently asked me again if we could sue somebody, and we're not going to. But do you think we've just become, and that's kind of a parenthesis on where you were headed with the changes, and it sounds like you think Brnovich has done a nice job of fighting some of that overly litigious culture. But are we too
So I didn't get to anything that I would change yet. So
no, I know. I'm sorry.
I'll go back to that first and just say I do think there are things that we can improve on. I look at the fact that you got half the people wondering whether their ballots were counted and the election was done rightly and whether they can count on that process, and that's a problem. And the Attorney General's office is tasked with making sure that that election security and integrity is there, and every eligible voter, regardless of their party affiliation, should have confidence in the fairness and the integrity of our Arizona elections. So that's something I would like to improve upon. I would like to make sure that if there are announcements in the media, this company is being investigated for doing this terrible thing, that there's an equal announcement later if they've been cleared. It really affects a business if they're targeted and told, that they've maybe done something wrong. There are 297,000 regulations that manufacturers have to deal with. How do you do that? It's enough to make you sick just trying to figure it all out and complying with it. And, the Attorney General should make it easy for those businesses who are trying to comply with the law to do so.
Okay, yeah, continue with your other changes that you had.
So I think there are things that need to be beefed up. They've literally got one person there working on election security. You've got to have more than that. I do love the fact that he set up a federalism unit to push back on some of the federal overreach, and that he was one of the first to file a lawsuit against the federal government's mandate that employers become the bullying arm to fire their employees if they don't get a vaccine. It should be up to Americans what health insurance they want, whether it's an injection or buying health insurance. Our U.S. Supreme Court has said that even Congress can't make a law forcing Americans to buy health insurance. So how does one man make a law forcing Americans to inject health insurance that they don't want? This should be the rights of our people. And again, with our Arizona Constitution saying that the main responsibility of government is to maintain individual rights and liberties, you've got to have an Attorney General who will do that. So I do appreciate that he stood up on those and worked with other Attorneys General across the U.S. to stand up for those rights. A lot of people don't know that one of the largest number of employees in the Attorney General's office works on child protective services. So the Department of Child Services is the biggest one. And I would love to specifically recruit attorneys who are committed to transforming kids' lives in the foster care system and not just, processing cases. There's so much more that we could bring around them with sports and mentors and faith-based charities that could bring other things to their lives and help them. I would love to see that done. Just a number of things that I would love to improve upon.
Great, thanks. Okay, I have one more question. I'm getting a lot of texts. Is that from you, David? Okay. Okay, yes, it is from you. No one else has texted me, just you. What is your relationship to the governor as Attorney General? Not you right now, but what's the Attorney General's relationship to the governor? And then follow on to that, so you're watching the governor's race closely then to see who you're going to be with or talk about them?
I am watching the governor's race, but I will say that I am not endorsing any particular gubernatorial candidate. I feel like it's so important for the governor and the AG to start out on as good a footing as possible. I wouldn't want to diss a bunch of others, before the people of Arizona have chosen who it is that they want. And I've seen where an attorney general and the governor can work together really well in some states, where they have a trust in each other, that you're going to really tell me what the law says and not just what you personally would like to do. And I would like to be that. I would like to be someone who upholds the Constitution, who upholds the rule of law, who gives good advice to our governor and all our elected officials and boards and commissions, and make sure that there's a trust there. One of the complaints that I have heard from mayors or others are that, I didn't hear until after I, issued this order that this would be against the law. There's no reason why you as an attorney of a client can't call them up and say, hey, I hear that what you're thinking of doing is this, and this would break the law. You can have that conversation with people and just find that way to resolve things without doing some big litigation or announcement.
Some mayors want to break the law first
Well,
and then
that
ask
too.
for forgiveness. But no, fair enough. Okay, questions. Here we go. Thank you for submitting so many questions. Let's see. Back to front here. Ooh. Just give me a second. How long did you host Young Life in your home?
Oh my, I did that for 14 years.
Okay.
And really loved it, being able to see so many kids come to know the Lord, and kids who were not necessarily in a good, safe environment. And my husband and I used to laugh about how something every week was broken or stolen for a while there. And it's like, well, the right kids are coming, But really got to know some of the leaders, especially, who were investing in these kids, and it was such a privilege to come alongside them and pray for them and get to know them. And they were doing the hard work of being involved in these kids' lives, and I'd love to see a similar model of caring for a foster child, going to their games, finding out about their lives, helping them with their homework, kind of like Young Life does. To just come alongside them and love them. It's amazing what one loving person can do in someone's life. And I just feel like the most valuable things that any of us do are how we love people well. That's the most lasting.
Well, I had a great experience with Young Life in high school in Dallas, and I have a lot of great memories of going into somebody's home where they hosted us and we broke things, and I didn't steal anything, but we broke a lot of things and had a great time. So thank you for doing that for those kids. This is, do you think the federal government overreach or the big tech, big pharma, big insurance overreach is more harmful? So I think what they're saying is, are these big businesses overreaching into our lives more harmful than the federal government overreaching into our lives?
They're harmful probably in equally but different ways. So the big government overreach is especially distressing because, again, our rights come from God. Our states only have the rights that the people give them. And the states created the federal government, not the other way around. And you had Jen Psaki saying the other day that the federal government trumps the states. It's like, whoa, since when? No, the states' rights are preeminent among, and we've got to have that that pushback, because the kinds of things that they've been requiring of individual businesses and individual people are way beyond their scope of what they have the power to do. And we've got to use everything possible. We've got to use the courts. We've got to speak it in the hallways and speak it in the media and make sure that we are not just pushing back on this, but hurling it back at them and saying, no, let's get back to what the limited government was meant to be. So that is really harmful. But I'm also seeing a lot of my friends are running for a school board and lots of local things. There's nothing more powerful than citizenry getting involved locally. You just start where you're at. What's in front of you? What do you see that needs to be fixed right here? And step up for that. And to let good attorneys general across the U.S. who can fight that, the federal overreach in particular.
Okay, good. Mistakes. Biggest business mistake, biggest legal mistake, biggest personal mistake that you're willing to share?
I have few regrets in my life. Maybe one of my regrets is simply spending so much time thinking about, oh, why didn't I say the right thing here or there? You know, it's all those little things, like, why did I sweat the little stuff so much? I have learned to just say, I am a child of God, and even if I say and do something less than perfectly, God can make good of it. And so to stop sweating the little stuff and just say, I will get out there and do what I can, imperfect as it is, and let the Lord make good of it.
Very good. I'm sorry. Now people in the audience are texting me directly, and you know who you are. If you have my cell phone and you're texting me directly, you're breaking the rules. Text to David. David will text it to me.
If it's good.
If it's good. All right. What is your take on the Dobbs case, and what will you do when abortion regulation is handled at the state level? So.
You asked at the start, you know, the difference that an attorney general makes, and I just think about my friend Lynn Fitch, who's the attorney general of Mississippi, bringing the Dobbs case. That is one person bringing something that will maybe even probably make a huge difference for the unborn, for the rest of our country.
Can you just quickly, for those who don't know?
So the Dobbs case in Mississippi was basically a 15-week prohibition against abortion after 15 weeks because of the studies that show that an unborn baby can feel pain after that. They have a heartbeat. They're fully formed. And so that case was brought challenging the unconstitutional construct of Roe v. Wade, where it's just the judges saying, well, we'll do it by trimesters and not really having a constitutional basis for that. And the arguments have been held, and we're still awaiting the U.S. Supreme Court's decision. And I'm hopeful that there may be changes to Roe v. Wade because of that. So I'm really proud of her for doing that.
Okay, another issue in the news. So back in the summer of 2020, there were some protests, there were camps set up, there were some violent protests that broke out in different cities around the country, and this individual's wanting to know if something similar happened in Arizona, how would you handle it as the Attorney General? What would your role even be? And what kind of steps do you think you would take?
Our Constitution, again, defends the right to protest. We have an absolute right to peacefully protest, and that is the difference. When you have a protest that's then squatting on personal property and taking things over and being violent, that's a protest that's not okay. And so there needs to be that difference where a peaceful protest is absolutely protected and guarded, and one that's violent is not put up with, and there's accountability for that.
Is Attorney General supposed to be a political party neutral position? How do you plan to maintain that as Attorney General if it is the case that it's supposed to be neutral?
So there are some posts that you'll see on your ballot that don't say whether someone's a Republican or a Democrat, the Maricopa County colleges and the water commissioners and such, but the Attorney General is listed by party. So there's no admonition that you have to be anti-political party to be Attorney General. But as Attorney General, I would want to be an Attorney General of all the people. It's not like I would just be representing those who've been defrauded if they're of one party. So it's got to be someone who cares about the whole state and is not just out there for political party only. But that doesn't mean that we don't come with a set of ideals related to the party.
Okay. 4 minutes. That's the next text I got. I'm just trying to keep everybody posted on what's going on here on my phone. Okay. Let me see. I should have just gone in order. I tried to get clever and mix them in here. Yeah. Current Attorney General has done a lot for sex trafficking. And one person's wondering what you'll do around this issue.
It is a really huge deal in Arizona. When you look at the numbers that we have coming across our border and the cartels, I've been down there, they've got these, like south of Tucson, there's these 2 cartel lookouts on the other side of our languishing wall that the Biden administration doesn't allow to be finished or repaired. Those cartel lookouts can see, oh, here's where the Border Patrol is stationed, and signal. And literally I see them signaling while I'm there because I've got a sheriff's deputy with me and so on, like, don't cross now, there's people there. They're signaling and they can see them. The cartels are harming people. They are raping the women. They are extorting the men and making them carry drugs. They are getting people across who then don't have the protection of government because we don't know they're here. And literally the cameras south of Tucson are showing 3,500 to 4,500 people coming across every month who aren't being captured, and it's 90 to 95% military-aged men. That is an invasion. And again, we have a U.S. constitutional right and a state constitutional right to guard against an invasion. We do not have to wait for the federal government to do that. They should be doing that. But if they're not, then we as a state absolutely have the right to do it, and we can sue the federal government afterward to pay us back for what we have to spend to do that. But we have to do that because I just look at the numbers of people that are coming over and being trafficked. I was speaking with Angel Barnett, who runs the Short Creek Human Trafficking Recovery Center in Arizona, and they're looking at expanding it in South Dakota, and the need is so great there. These women have been, and boys too, have been broken. And they need the transforming love of God, and they need help. And we should not be allowing this humanitarian disaster at our border to go on. It is wrong. And if we care about humans at all, we've got to care about the stuff at the border because it is so harming people. It is so bringing not just the human trafficking, but also the drugs across. They've literally brought enough fentanyl in a month to kill every American in the country. I think it's shocking. And I look at how many kids have become addicted to drugs and the overdose. We're having an American overdose on drugs every 5 minutes. This is not acceptable, and so much of it is coming into Arizona. We should not put up with it.
Well said. I do need to make it clear to the audience, I didn't say it earlier, we're not endorsing Dawn's candidacy by bringing her to the forum. We just want to create space. And David's going to talk a little bit more about this when he comes up, I think, at the end. Or if you have questions, you can ask the church about it. I want to create space for these types of conversations among business leaders, political leaders, and the church community here in Phoenix, and hopefully we're accomplishing that. I certainly want to give Dawn the opportunity, though, to talk a little bit about how you can help if you're interested in her campaign. So, Dawn, if you want to just take a couple minutes and tell folks how can they get involved? Can they volunteer? I'm pretty sure they can give money. What other things can they do?
Thank you, Presley. I appreciate that and appreciate the option to be involved here and to see the great work that Living Streams is doing and the great work in the community. So yes, I have, Ryan here has a petition. There's a certain number of petitions that have to be signed to get me onto the ballot. I have to have over 6,600 and some signatures. We are well on our way. Probably have close to 6,000 now, so it's coming along, but I want to make sure I have way more than that to make sure that it's, if any are not counted, that we have enough. So if you could sign the petition, you can only sign for one candidate in each office. Sign that, go to dawngroveforarizona.com. It's dawn like a burning sunrise and grove like a bunch of trees, just saying, so hopefully you remember my name here. But going to the website and following our social media, and you can contribute online. I know that God has enabled some people to be able to give. You can give up to $10,600 per couple, which is a big amount. Some of you may have that ability or may know of people who do. And others maybe are willing to volunteer. I definitely need volunteers at different events, and I need prayers. I would love for people to pray for me. I really feel like that's my biggest need, and when the Lord opens the doors, there's no shutting them.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now I think we have, David, are you coming up? Okay. So let's give Dawn a round of applause before David comes back up.